this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, and today we're going to talk about whether or not you need a holding company LLC or an umbrella LLC. So what is a holding LLC or an umbrella LLC? It's not really a special kind of LLC, a special kind of limited liability corporation. It's really something that you do, a strategy for using an LLC. What it means is that you have multiple businesses or projects or lines all in one LLC. And that LLC holds all those different businesses, or it's an umbrella for all those different business lines or businesses or products or websites or YouTube channels or whatever it is. Sometimes people also use it for real estate. Sometimes people also use it to hold intellectual property like copyrights, trademarks, patents, things like that. There are a lot of things you can hold inside an LLC. Fundamentally, we're talking about assets, whether they're physical assets like real estate or they're businesses that you own or intellectual property that you own. Another aspect of umbrella or holding LLCs is that they can hold the businesses outright or they can hold other businesses inside them. So you could have one LLC that's an umbrella over all your other businesses and then have 3 LLCs that are owned by that one. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Obviously, the more LLCs and corporations you form, the more expensive it is and the more complex it gets. So why would you want to do this at all? The first reason I find clients want to create a holding or umbrella LLC is because they're an individual business owner, or maybe they have 1 or 2 business partners, and they're starting a bunch of different projects, but they're all just projects. They're just ideas at the beginning. Maybe they have 3 different websites. Maybe they have consulting over here and classes they teach, and they also have this website business over here. They have a bunch of different things that may or may not be related, except the fact that they're all owned by them. And they don't know which one's going to work. They don't know which one's going to make money and take off. And in the beginning, it can make a lot of sense to simplify your life by having just one LLC for all those different projects. Then in the future, if one of them takes off, you can always spin that off into its own LLC or corporation. But in the meanwhile, they're all together. Another reason it can be helpful is for financial planning and tax planning. So let's say you have your umbrella LLC and you have 2 businesses in there. You have your consulting business, and then you also have this new project, and this business makes money, okay? Then you have this other new project where you're starting a website and you're gonna sell these products and all this stuff. And has a lot of initial expense in the beginning because you're paying someone to design an entire new website and things, and it's not making very much money. Well, if they're all in the same LLC, the expenses of this business can be used against the income of this business, so this business looks less profitable on paper for the IRS, and it reduces your tax burden. So this can be a really helpful way for bootstrapping to work. So you can get the financial effects of bootstrapping to lower your tax burden because you're paying for these expenses. And the last reason you may want to do this is because it can just simplify how things work financially. And so what I mean is, let's say you have a physical office where you're paying rent. And in this physical office, you are doing all 3 different business lines that you have. So which one of those business lines pays the rent for this place? And how do the other ones pay for it? Well, if they're all in one LLC, then just the LLC pays the rent and all 3 businesses use it. If you set it up a different way, then you can do that. You can have one of the LLCs pay rent and then the other 2 businesses, maybe they're separate LLCs, they pay some sort of, rent to that LLC. Obviously that's complicated and it can make sense if you're making a lot of money and if it's a lot of rent that we're talking about, but that's something that you may not want to do unless it makes sense for your business. So by having one LLC for all those businesses, you can share resources like rental space, like staff, like an accountant, like all the different things that you need, a same website, etc. So when does it not make sense to have a holding LLC or an umbrella LLC? Well, first, if you have different owners for the different businesses, then they need to be separate businesses. So if you have one part that's just you, solo business, and then you have another that is a kind of a joint venture partnership thing with another person or persons, they need to be separate legal entities because they have different ownership structure. So you want to split off the different ownership structures into different legal entities. The next aspect is everything that is inside that LLC is liable for each other. So if you have one aspect of your business that has a lot of potential liability, perhaps you do live events, which not that many people are doing right now, but in a different world, you're doing live events, and people drink alcohol at this event, and they do there's a potential risk for people being injured in this event for some reason. But then over here, you have your consulting work, there's very little risk of anyone ever being hurt with your consulting, and you have insurance, error admissions insurance to cover that. You may not want your consulting business to be liable for this event business because there's a lot more risk. Also, if one business has employees who may go do some terrible thing on behalf of your business, make some bad decision, but over here, this is something that you do all yourself, like your consulting, for example, you may want that completely separate. It really depends upon the situation, fundamentally, whether or not it makes sense to have an umbrella LLC. If you want to save costs, if all the businesses are relatively small, if it's a relatively low risk, if it's all the same owners, it can make a lot of sense. But as soon as you introduce different aspects of your business having significantly different risks, especially if you can't get rid of those risks by getting adequate insurance, or at least mitigate them very well, if they have different owners. If you need to do more sophisticated tax planning, that's where this may not be a good fit, or you may need to do the complicated version of this, which is having an umbrella LLC with multiple LLCs under it. And if you're thinking that may be what makes sense for you, that's when you need to have an accountant run the numbers to see if the tax saving is actually worth all the costs of the additional complexity. Again, this is Attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, feel free to go ahead and leave them below in the comments, and I'll try to point you in the right direction. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful, and subscribe if you like any more tips for small business owners. Talk to you next time.